There's nothing in the world more powerful than a good story. Nothing can stop it. No enemy can defeat it. And who has a better story than Bran the Broken? The boy who fell from a high tower and lived. He knew he'd never walk again, so he learned to fly. He crossed beyond the wall, a crippled boy, and became the three-eyed raven. He is our memory, the keeper of all our stories. The wars, weddings, births, massacres, famines, our triumphs, our defeats, our past. Who better to lead us into the future?
Obviously, I will lead you to the future for the next 1 hour and a half, mainly. I'm Jen Kutsamarko, and very welcome to this webinar on storytelling. I happen to work as a communication and knowledge head of unit for the URBACT Secretariat, so therefore for the URBACT program, which is an EU-funded program that helps cities, funds and enables cities across Europe to come together and exchange on different urban topics and find together sustainable solutions at local level. So within URBACT, in addition to these networking activities that we organize, we also have a strand of activities about capacity building to build and strengthen the skills of city administrations on different topics. And we also organize knowledge and communication activities like events, webinars, publication. And this webinar is part of our knowledge offer to European cities. So let's say now why we organize this webinar. So you know that there are thousands of tips, guides, guidelines on storytelling, generally speaking. So if you Google or if you go to LinkedIn, you will find these tips on storytelling. But what we wanted to do today is to adapt this storytelling tool to an urban context, because there are specificities when it comes to storytelling in cities and for citizens. It's not only about communication and information giving, but here what we're going to talk about is how we can use this powerful tool of storytelling to engage with citizens. And we will try to equip you, mainly city administration. So this is our target audience as a program with storytelling techniques and tools, but also with examples, hopefully that you will be inspired of for your own local policy making. So this is part of a bigger process. This webinar is part of a bigger process that we started back in summer 2025. So we launched a survey to our URBACT cities about their storytelling needs, how they can better communicate, how can they better engage with their citizens. And these findings of this survey helped us develop and design a series of webinars. So this is the second webinar actually we organized, but this is the public webinar. We had already one in September for our URBACT cities. And this is the very first public webinar we organized on storytelling for cities. And we will soon, following this webinar, we will also put together all the findings, all the examples, all the tools a city can use in a guide that we will start developing in early 2026, and that we will present during the URBACT City Festival that we organized in Nicosia on 31st March, 1st April 2026. You can already register to this city festival. You can see the link here, and there will be a dedicated session during this festival on storytelling. Let's see now how this will work. So this webinar will be led mainly by Sandra Rainero and Brian Marinan, as both of them are URBACT experts working with URBACT cities within URBACT networks. And together we have developed all these process that I told you about. These will be also the ones who will be present at the URBACT City Festival and will be giving you tips all along. And we will also have some examples, some illustrations of the theory that Brian and Sandra will present you. We will have some illustrations of storytelling techniques by three cities, the city of Altea and Getafe from Spain, but also Ravenna from Italy. So you will see how we can put storytelling techniques into practice. How we will engage with you. So you can already connect to WooClap. This is our online tool to interact with you. So if you scan right away this QR code, or if you just tap wooclap.com and you then add the code story to tell, you will be able to connect. So stay tuned always on WooClap, because we will ask you at least 2 questions throughout the webinar. And you can also have the possibility to ask any questions for the speakers or for us as organizers through the questions and answers options on Zoom. So I will give you a few more seconds to connect. I see. So today, right now, we're 215 people connected in this webinar. On WooClap, I can see that you are only 85. So I'll be waiting for you still to connect. Few more seconds before we start the webinar. Let's connect as many as possible, because we need your own inputs. And also, if you have any questions, also you can also ask few of them on WooClap. So we have 108 on WooClap. I'm still waiting for a few more. Let's make it like a very active interaction through WooClap. All right, and so what I'm going to ask you, before I hand it over to our experts, I'm going to ask you to really stay focused. If possible, please just close all the different tabs that you may have on your internet navigators. Just stay focused on this webinar for the next 1 hour and a half. Hopefully it will be very interesting for you, and you will get some tools and techniques to use just after the webinar. So just stay focused, because we will have like a series of theoretical slides that we will present to you, some tools that you can use. And then also for the stories of the cities, we will need your active concentration. So I'm going now to hand it over to Sandra, and enjoy this webinar. Before I do that, I forgot that I have to also to ask you this question. So we have 162 people already connected. Let's see, hopefully WooClap will bear with all these people. So the question is, which of the following techniques engage you the most? There are different techniques how we can create a story, or how we can tell a story through different means. Storytelling, most of you. So you tell a story. Story photographing, it's a second trend with story writing. Story performing and story filming. Story filming can be also through Instagram, for example, through videos that then you post on social media. This is a very also powerful means to say a story. All right, so storytelling is the first one. Then we have story photographing. Again, also images are very strong means to tell a story. Thank you very much. I think we're fine. So I only have 118 people out of 177 who are connected on WooClap. So let's try to boost these figures. All right, so storytelling is the first thread in any case, Sandra, and the floor is yours.
Thank you, Jenny. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this webinar. So since we're talking about stories, I thought of starting with a very famous start or familiar start of a story. So once upon a time, just to introduce you to a key concept, which will be the underlying concept and recurring in many, many shapes in the words, not only of myself and Brian, but also of the cities that will share their stories. So the first concept is, as you have seen also in the poll, that storytelling is about sharing social information. And when we talk about social information in urban context, we're talking about sharing with different citizens and stakeholders. Colleagues can be anyone, and it takes many, many shapes. But the first important concept that is important is that storytelling is a way that we make sense of the world. When we are kids, we are taught through stories. And this is a way that our brain basically trying to make sense of the world, of the surroundings. The second important concept that will be underlying is still in the previous slide, sorry, Jenny, is about the quote that I put there, and it's about the audience or who the storytelling is for. And this is about citizens. So citizens is a social construct. It is an invention. There are no citizens. There are people of different ages, different genders, different educational, socio-economical status, that also represent different worlds. So the idea when we talk about citizens, it's for you who are responsible to find out which specific citizens, which audience you're talking to. So pay attention to these two concepts. Storytelling is as old as humankind. So it's a way that our brain interprets the surroundings to build a world model. What does it mean? It means that for us as a species, we're not the strongest ones we would like to be or the fastest ones, but definitely we are a species that relies on two important features. The first one is curiosity, that didn't only kill the cat, but also some men, and a higher sense of self-awareness. So we're always aware, or most of the times aware what we're doing, where we are. And that these are the two features as humans, as social beings, to survive and to adapt to changes. And keep in mind this word change, because it will be another recurring word. When we talk about famous sentence, control the narrative, in reality, we need to control the environment. So this is how stories also help us do that. Another important feature is that stories are all about connections. As I said, making sense also implies the fact that we need to connect words or images to form a coherent story. So again, to make sense. Because it's in our brain that we need to find all the time a cause-effect links. So we always have to explain ourselves and sense making again, how the different elements create a cause-effect links and a coherent story, even if one doesn't exist. This is a very famous, what you see here, 6 word. It's attributed to Hemingway, but we don't really know. And these are just 6 words. Each of you right now, they are connecting these words and trying to find a coherent stories. That's how good storytelling actually helps us do this, create connections. Another part of stories from the dawn of humanities to cities is that stories revolve around change or transformation. If there is no change or no transformation, there's no really a story, because change and transformation is also the way that we humans try to deal with the surroundings. Stories also build and reflect our cultural environment. They basically recall memories, strengthen values, and make behaviors acceptable, or as we will see later, non-acceptable. So stories within the cities and in general, they do build connections. We have seen this as a natural thing for humans, but they also define boundaries. The boundaries of the city, the boundaries of the group that we belong to or don't belong to. So stories can have very different means and ends and aims. So stories, as I said, are part of humankind. We can call the stories like one of the oldest forms of technologies. And over time, and I have already made some examples talking about how our brain functions, from the philosophers in Greece to the recent experts on behavioral science. They have tried to explain why stories are so powerful. So I will give you some, very quickly, some examples of how the different disciplines have looked at stories from different perspectives. And of course, the interdisciplinary approach is what we use here. Okay, so we have the anthropology, ethnology, science that look at how, again, stories transmit culture and share identity. Sociology is more focused on how stories connect communities and shape movements and create change. Psychology is about how we process experience, and experience is one of those things that when a story is told, we connect to, but also we remind and we understand the world that is around us. Behavioral science, that's one of the science, it's about how we perceive and how stories help us through nudges. I'm sure that you all are familiar with this word. They nudge us to decision makings and actions after we hear stories. Neuroscience, I already used this example, is about how our neural network in our brain lights up in different areas, and the stories are not stories, they're real to us, so we feel them as they were real. And then, of course, there's also quantum physics, but I'm not going to talk about that. That's all another story. So we're now going back to storytelling and the cities. And storytelling and the cities, when we're discussing how we're going to link a general storytelling webinar to the cities, engaging citizens, we thought about making it a little bit easier for you or more complex, because instead of talking about storytelling, we will be talking about three different terms that also reflect a little bit the URBACT philosophy, which is storytelling is better, like action planning, when it is participated and it's action oriented. So I will talk about three very briefly, because then we'll leave the floor to the cities, about three different terms: storytelling, story making, and story doing. And you will see how these three terms will connect to the topic of our webinar, which is let's engage citizens, even if we are the storytellers. So the first one is a storytelling, what we perceive. It's communicating a narrative, okay? It's the way in cities we explain real people, real places, real emotions, real problems in a way that is it resonates with our audience, with our citizens. And the way that is powerful is that we need to turn abstract goals, especially if we talk about policy or other less, let's say, tangible things, into human-centered stories. So this is about storytelling. But what's behind, before you deliver a story, we have a second concept, which is, and you will see this, you will all see this, it will make more sense to you when the cities talk, is about story making. Story making comes before storytelling. It's about co-creating narratives. And that's when you want to engage your citizens, your stakeholders. So these are stories that are not from the storyteller. A good storyteller always disappears and the story appears in front of the audience, okay? But the story making is about creating the story with the people who are involved or are affected by the change. Okay, this is very important because it's a collective effort that empowers people, in this case, citizens. And it collects different voices and perspective. And this story is more powerful because story making helps you build ownership of this. It creates trust in the process even before delivery. The last concept is, let's say, a mix between storytelling and story making. We call it story doing. It's used also in territorial marketing, for example, but is a very immersive way of storytelling, okay? It's a way that embodies the story through concrete, also many times physical, but it could be digital ways. And this is what you will hear next. Let's say sparks up all the senses. So it's multisensorial. And it's very powerful because it's tangible and memorable. We're talking about city walks, we're talking about hackathons, we're talking about many other things that we'll be talking next. So without further ado, I hope I didn't run too much because I know it's a lot of content, but as Jenny said, we have the guide, so please, when it's ready, go back to it. All this will be in it. So I'm passing the floor now to Brian and the first two cities who are going to be our guests.
Thanks, Sandra. So now that Sandra has introduced you to the concepts of storytelling, story making, and story doing, we're going to look at how each one shapes the experience of citizens, the partners, and wider communities in each of the cities. So we're moving into a part of the session where we're getting two fantastic real-life examples of stories from European cities. To help us explore this further, our two speakers coming from the municipality of Altea and the city of Getafe are going to give a little bit of a similar context, but different style of engagement and participation. And as you listen to this, I'm going to invite you to observe those attributes of storytelling, story making, and story doing within each of the examples. Feel free to put it into the Q&A. And I think pay particular attention to how the audience or the participants were considered in the design and the delivery of the activity as the stories develop. And then I want you to reflect on the impact those approaches had on the people involved. Now, as Paloma unmutes herself, now we're going to and prepares to start her story. I just wanted to say I'd love for you to share your observations in the Q&A and questions and comments. We're going to be putting a couple of your questions to the speakers at the end of this. So do get those into the Q&A and we'll go from there. So with that, let us start with our first story from Altea.
Hello, everybody. Well, just let me start with a simple question, and it's how well do we really know our cities? Because we spend so much time planning them behind screens, with maps, with data, but sometimes we forget to feel them, to walk them. And that's exactly what we did in Altea, Alicante in Spain, by the way. And through our critical walk, a small experiment that completely changed the way we look at our town. We were able to turn planners, professionals, experts into walkers, technicians into storytellers, and make us use and see that no report or aerial photo could ever show. So today, I would like to share with you not just what we found, but how this simple exercise, and I wouldn't call it simple, help us to reconnect with our city. And maybe, who knows, it could inspire some of you to try something similar in your own municipalities. So when my dear Sandra and Brian approached to me asking me a bunch of questions, and literally was a bunch of questions like what challenge or goals lead us to organize the walk, or who was or our intended audience, and why did we choose this format, I thought, woof, okay, how could I start to tell? So I will tell you a story, as this is about storytelling, that brought us here in Altea. One of our main urban challenges is and always been the fragmentation created by the railway line that runs right through town. It physically and symbolically separates or splits the upper historic area from the lower coast part. In fact, when we joined the Daring Cities network, we wanted to understand this challenge, not just through maps or plans, but through the real experience. By walking the spaces together, and maybe that's why we decided to organize this critical walk, a workshop where observation, dialogue, and creativity meet on the ground. So from the video, you're going to be able to see all the process. Our participants were not only from the local administration, that's really important, but we invited political representatives, the most important, municipal technicians from the house, regional institutions such as tourism and the train transport government, they are the key. And our academics, partners from universities and another University of Fine Arts that we have in Altea. This idea was to bring together different minds and disciplines, urban planning, mobility, art, tourism, and equality, all working and thinking together. And oh boy, we did it. I just still can't believe it. So before we started the walk, we took like 15, 20 minutes just to do a short presentation and 1.5 hours to collectively walk through the experience. I never thought so many ideas would come together to the point that solutions start coming along, all from one critical walk. That is really, I can't stress that enough. Then Sandra asked me, how would I describe one of the two moments that stood up in this critical walk? That's a difficult question, as there were many moments worth remembering. But one of the ones that stood up very clearly was when the group reached one of the tunnels that connects the two sides of town. It was narrow and dark and not very comfortable. And for that moment, everybody felt the silence there. And someone, I think it was from the Fine Arts, said, now we understand what it means to cross this every day with a stroller or a wheelchair. That sentence from that moment, it did change the whole tone of the walk, because suddenly the discussion moved from theory to empathy. Architects, engineers, they will start thinking, they will start talking to each other. So everything started to shape and start just having meaning. Another moment, it was when we went through a route called La Filarmonica. We standing together and looking through the sea, because you could see the sea. And one of us said, this view is a real connection between the upper and the lower Altea. And that moment captured the essence of what we were all trying to rediscover and reconnect, the emotional link between the different parts of the same town. And I could continue, but my time is very limited. So then I have to tell you about these moments of connection, tension, or insight, right? Because there were many, and actually there was a connection because the walk created a genuine dialogue between people who don't usually share the same field because they don't see each other, like politicians, technicians, academics, etc. There was tension, of course, especially when we discussed why certain spaces have remained neglected or inaccessible. But that tension was very constructive. It opened a real conversation about priorities, resources, and coordination between institutions. There was an insight, a lot actually. The shared realization that the railway, once seen as a barrier, could actually become the backbone of a new urban and social connection, maybe even a green civic corridor linking mobility, art and nature. So if I have to say, so far so good. And finally, I've got to the point what did this critical work teach us about storytelling in cities? And that is an amazing question. And I tell you, for us, the key lesson was that storytelling in cities start by walking together, because a city obviously is not only made of buildings, but it's made of stories, like at the beginning of this session, stories that people live and people remember and they share, and this is true. So through this critical walk, we discovered that observation and storytelling are tools of governance. That's why our politicians are very committed with this project and URBACT. They help align the technical and the human perspectives. Therefore, we learn that data and drawing are essential, yes, but so are feelings, memories, and conversations. In Altea now, we do see storytelling as part of our urban strategy. It helps us to connect disciplines, strengthens participation, and build a shared vision for a more inclusive, creative, and sustainable town. So, if I summarize, in one sentence, I would say that the best way to understand your city is to walk its story together with people that know and they don't know. So having said that, I have to say that thank you very much for listening. And I'm Paloma Verdu from Municipality of Altea, and just happy to help. So thank you for giving us this opportunity, Sandra, Brian, and Jenny. Thank you.
Paloma, thank you so much. What a vivid story. Delighted with that. And there was so much in that example that speaks to how narrative and participation can change how people see their own spaces, actually. And that's really, really powerful. So our next story is coming from Getafe. I will continue to prompt you. The speakers, or the questions for the speakers, pop them into the chat. I'm sure there are things that you would like to know if you were to implement something like this in your own territories. So now's the opportunity to grab these people and get your question answered live. So do put that in. So without further ado, Fernando, you are very welcome.
Thank you very much, Brian. Thank you for having us. Thank you for having Getafe. My name is Fernando González. I'm an architect working in European projects for the municipal housing and company for Getafe municipality. Getafe is a medium-sized city in the south of Madrid. And I'm bringing you a failure story today. I think I want to focus on the purpose of why doing this Jane walk or a storytelling activity. But I will focus more in how, because since 2023, we have been using this form of storytelling on several occasions. Some work well and others not so well. Now we are starting to understand why. Our first James walk was a success. It was a part of the rehabilitation boards we were developing in Getafe as part of the diagnostic work for Getafe Rehabilita. That was our rehabilitation strategy that is currently under development. Our main objective was to recover the idea of these pedestrians walks in the city. This practice, which is not instrumental in principle, is carried out as an end in itself and will be helping us in understanding the importance of distinguish between the city plan by technicians and the regulatory instruments and the city that is experienced by the users in their daily lives, through intersecting and complementary perspectives that we need to focus on. We had this first attempt inside Getafe Rehabilita, and it was a success. The objective focused on the citizens, not on the information. The tour was well organized and structured. Well, the weather was good with pleasant temperatures, no rain. The methodology was correct and effective, and we have a finale. We have the possibility to offer the citizenship one direct contact with the mayor, because the mayor was closing the whole activity, and it was really, really interesting for us. It was really a success. So we spotted the opportunity of doing one James walk sometimes later. In this case, in our first European project, the EPIU Getafe Healthy Homes, we identified these walks as an excellent opportunity to raise awareness about energy poverty and energy efficiency at the neighborhood level. So we developed our second attempt in storytelling in the Healthy Homes routes. 2 walks through the 2 neighborhoods covered by the project. In this second attempt, it was a complete failure. The objective focused in the information, not in the citizens. The tool was well organized and structured, but it was boiling hot in summer in July in Spain. So it was really difficult to gather the people. The methodology was correct and effective. In fact, it was the same correct and effective methodology that has been working the first time. But given the dates, we did not expect much participation. And without participation, there are no politicians. And without politicians is no participation. So we failed to meet expectations of everyone. And if we had improved our methodology, I don't know, better communication materials, more intensive contact with its citizens, or even increasing dissemination through campaigns, I don't know. Today, I'm convinced that if we have done this, we believe there would have been any difference in the success of the second James Walk, because the main mistake was to assume that citizens are as interested in receiving information as we are in providing it. And the third attempt came, and we, in this third attempt, okay, this is the picture with no show, because we were only the organizers taking the picture. And the third attempt was the same message, the same content, the same walk, same path actually, but with a different audience. So in this third attempt was totally a success, because we understood in this third time the key ideas that are from our side important to develop this kind of storytelling. The first one is the importance of who the recipient of the story is, as opposed to the story itself. The second one is the information alone has no value if it does not make any impact. The more diverse the audience, it's easier to identify their interests and respond to them. Each target viewer expects something from the communication. You have to know what is that and offer it to them anyhow. I don't know, maybe it's merchandising, maybe it's food, maybe it's the contact with a politician, and logistics, space, and climate, and limited factors in the impact of the story. And the last conclusions is the main one. There's no single methodology that always works, no matter who it is. If you're not considered the one that is receiving this communication, you will be failing as we did. So this is our success and failure story. And thank you very much for listening.
Fernando, thank you. Really appreciate it. Thank you both. We have limited time left, so I just wanted to do one question, because both of you have kind of discussed storytelling from the concept of reframing. And we started this webinar with a clip from Game of Thrones, just how reframing a person's story can actually change their perspective and give people hope in a different way. Paloma, what you were saying about the train line in particular, on how you were reframing what it could be for the city really struck me. I'm wondering if both of you could go back now and change something. What would that be? What would you reframe for yourselves in the context of setting the story? What would have made your lives easier that everyone can learn from?
You asking me, Brian?
Yes, please.
Well,
and we'll go to Fernando after that.
Yeah, I have to say that not sure I would change anything. Probably the nerves of the moment, but what we thought it was an obstacle, it wasn't really an obstacle. It was just, you know, the performance, because sending the invitations and maybe not getting a proper straight answer back, the timing, the deadline, that did make me nervous. But when I saw all the many people from the government, regional government, plus my politicians, plus all the technicians from the house together, no, that obstacle disappear. It was actually
Amazing.
it's just the first time I can say that something went so well that actually we seeing results on that. And for that, I have to thank my partner, the Dari City, the lead partner, because the storytelling and the way we're doing things, I think it works. So it's just the URBACT methodology. And thanks to
Fantastic.
these moments that we're sharing knowledge and our experiences, it's just giving us the tools that we need to implement this kind of experience. So for me, sorry, I cannot say that I would change anything. It just, everything went so well. We even repeated this critical work with our partners when they came to visit us in Altea, because we host the event in URBAC. And even though it went really, really well, because people really got into the critical work and did share with us what they were seeing with clean eyes. So for me, the main importance is that you go all the actors where you want them to be. Is the only reason that you can actually change things.
Love
So,
that. And
kudos.
even in failure, we learn. Isn't that right, Fernando? So maybe you don't want to change that either. What's your perspective?
I think you should try. You never know. You never know why something is going to be a success, and you have to take advantage of learning, even if mainly when you are failing. And these attempts uh, provided us with more knowledge too. Because when you're trying to verbalize, to say something to someone, you're saying that same message to yourself, and you can refine it. So I will recommend everyone to try to do this James walk, critical walks, any kind of diffusion or communication activities, because you will learn not only how to communicate, but how to impact, how to impact in yourself also, because you're talking also for your teammates, for your bosses, for yourself when you are verbalizing something. So
Great.
I suggest you simply to try and fail.
Thank you both for your contribution. Really appreciate it. And I'll pass it back to Sandra.
Okay, thank you, Brian, and and thank you, Fernando and Paloma, for making the next part just easier for me, just because you have seen in their stories many of the things that I'm just gonna quickly recap now. So the second part is about what's inside storytelling. So what are the mechanics? And we heard many of the words already in the stories before that make good storytelling. The first part, the first thing that I want to say is that storytelling is about the narrative arc, okay, or the narration. So there are many ways people who study or try to explain storytelling, and especially many metaphors, which are an important part of our language system, metaphors, how stories are developed, or how we can analyze stories and the ingredients. So we have the hero journeys approach. We have the more like cinematic mountain or pyramid, that was theater. So when things starts in the beginning, then they reach a climax, and then they go towards the end. And then we have the story spine, which has been popularized by Pixar, that also has a different approach in terms of how a story unfolds. We're going to focus a little bit more on the hero's journey, in the sense that we're talking about the ingredients now. And as I said, you heard many of these ingredients. So I will shortly summarize these. And thanks again to Paloma and Fernando to highlight some of them already. Before I leave the word to Ravenna, so that these ingredients, I will ask you then to try to identify them in the next CT story. So, as I said, stories, and it was also said, are all about change. Okay, so I highlighted here 9 key ingredients of storytelling. On some of them we already have discussed. You can read the examples in cities that I've made. I just want to focus on some of them, not all of them. You will find them in the guide. The first one is the stories need protagonists or heroes. If they are collective stories, we can all be the heroes, okay? Why? Why do we need that? The hero can be the city itself, the space. We have seen that in Paloma's and also in Fernando's stories. Because we need to identify, to connect to the stories, okay? So the story and the heroes and the protagonists are those who change the story or are changed by the story. And I will come back on that. The other thing also that we heard already, it was about the conflict. Conflict that can be internal or external. If you have stories, think about, you can talk about internal conflicts within the protagonist, or physical, or any other kind of conflict that you may find. Is really the engine of the story, because a conflict represents an obstacles or a risk, as we will see later, without which there's no change, there's no transformation. So we always need to highlight in our stories where is the conflict. The next three ingredients are about attention and suspense. Okay, that's also a very good way for you to make the story interesting to your citizens. Okay, because suspense and tension, they put together. You remember when I talked about curiosity? Okay, curiosity, but also resolution and motivation. It increases the dopamine effect. Okay, think about all the suspense movies, Hitchcock, whom I love. A transformation and change I already talked about. You need to identify where your transformation will happen in your story. But as Paloma said, there were many transformational moments, many aha moments. But just make sure that you have it in your own story. About the risk I talked already about, but it's about, again, making connection with our different perspectives on the world, and looking at risk like conflicts to be overcome so that we can actually achieve an end of the story. The last three, I will speak about only the emotional resonance mostly, because we see that stories touch upon our emotions, and emotions can be different. We can have joy, we can have pride, frustrations, hope. Any kind of emotional peak make the story more relatable, because it strengthens our memory through emotions and empathy. The reward is always something that we expect. It eases our tension, and it can be symbolic, but it can also be physical. And then, of course, the story has to have a message, and the message is about the change, okay? And the message is about what's coming next, how did this end, what was the reward, what was the change, and what we learned about that. And all you heard this about when our colleagues from Altea and Getafe talked. And so I'll pass the floor again now, because I would like for you to think about these ingredients, or some of them, the ones that you pick up. Now the floor to Brian and to Giulia Cillani from Ravenna.
Great. So Julia is going to share her own slides. So I'm here basically as a stopgap while you wait for someone more interesting than me. Julia is going to tell us a little bit about what she was doing in the context of Ravenna in Italy, and give us a slightly different story in terms of where, I guess, storytelling, story making, and story doing all combine into this fantastic feature. I have to say, visually, this is one of the most exciting things I have seen in quite some time. So hopefully those slides are coming up for you. Julia, is that working?
Hi.
Are you able to share?
Yes. Is it working? Could you
I think it's
confirm
coming
it?
up there now, and you just make it full screen mode.
Okay.
There we go. Fantastic.
Here
So
we
this
are.
is just a brilliant local story of engaging citizens, and may actually help with some of the questions. Katerina had a question in the Q&A there, and I think this will be an interesting insight onto how to engage other people in projects. So Julia, over to you.
Thank you very much, Brian, and thank you all. And hello, everyone. I am Giulia Cillani. I'm an officer at the Municipality of Ravenna, European Policies Department. And our office supported the city and the local community last years in developing a very important project for us, URBACT project, which focus was the regeneration of a suburb of our city of Ravenna, the Darsena. We use to refer to the Darsena as an abandoned and neglected district. It hosted the city port until the end of the 60s, but then the port was moved and it became, in a sort of way, a dismissed industrial area along with residential blocks. The Dare project aimed at regenerating the district along with the citizens, and storytelling, of course, have been a key instrument to activate participation, collaboration, and citizen involvement. We wanted, with storytelling, to build a positive narration of the district, to develop a sense of ownership and belonging. That for us is a key element, important as well for important for regeneration process. Likewise, the renovation of buildings or other infrastructural works. To build a collaborative storytelling journey, we promoted not just one activity, but a series of action. For example, we made video interviews with citizens and investors that was ready to take some action on the district. We made podcasts with young people and artists. We made a digital story map narrating the evolution of the district, guided tours, urban games, and so on. But today we wanted to tell you about one precise action that was called Unroll the Memory, and it was a public call for the collection of home and family films, meaning pictures and movies. We asked for, in collaboration with another project that was the University of Bologna and a cultural association that was the protagonist, the creator of the activities, we asked for family films, family videos, and picture. We asked the people to bring those memories, those private thing to us, and they did, because we were contacted by 41 families and we collected 545 pictures and around 6,000 meters of films. That is like making 15 laps of an athletics track. You can see some of the pictures here in the presentation. What was important was that the center of the picture of what we were representing is the person. It was the son, the mother, the sister. It was their stories. They feeling they engaged because they were the main character. But in the background, we see our district, the Darsena, the focus of our project. And through the picture, we were seeing how they lived in the neighborhood and how the neighborhood changed. The pictures that we collected were organized to stage outdoor exhibition in 5 different locations of the district. Some of the locations were places in which we want and we would like to activate some regeneration processes. Some other were other private locations, so places that were used to stay closed or locked. So like a social housing apartment or inner garden, but we also set the exhibition on the wall of an industrial, not anymore used location, the Satramore wall, that was one of the focus of the project. This the citizens that brought to us their memories, their privates, were also the guides of the exhibition. So they actively owned the process, and they take by the end the other citizen telling how they lived in the district. So this apparently simply activity developed really a sense of playing, of belonging and pride around the Darsena, that were a neglected area of the city, a marginal area, but we remembered that after the war was an active and important economic center of the city. We forgot it. In the 80s and in the 90s, it was the destination of a lot of migration flow, so people coming outside from Ravenna, and that enriched the community, something difficult to understand, but through the history of our grandfather that maybe came from another region of Italy because they had to work there. Now we can compare the new migration flow that we are living now. So today is really a place in which innovation, interculture, sorry, but this story of the people, the workers that coming after the wars was we represented it just not with the exhibition and pictures and movie film, but also with a podcast with the people that were involved in this activity also narrated the stories in this podcast, and this was very effective. We rediscovered with this beautiful image. Also, I think that Brian before said something important. What we set, what we staged was beautiful to see. We were able to narrate a place in which today there is some kind of sparkle of innovation, interculture, and social life. We rediscovered the beauty, and we actually are now still making public calls in the Darsena. So we are very proud that stories have been told but are still being represented and told. So thank you very much. Hope that that I was on time. Thank you all.
Fantastic. Thank you. I love the collective story that these tell. But what's also fascinating is that each of these photos almost has its own story within those 9 elements of what Sandra was talking about. That one with the gentleman, one playing the guitar, the other one with the mic, that is a story in and of itself. I can imagine a nonny walking past, tutting at these rebels as they were doing their rock and roll. So that's fantastic. Before I pass over to Sandra, I do see there's a couple of people with raised hands. If you could put your comments into the Q&A, really appreciate it, and we'll go from there. Sandra.
I'm going to take the floor, Brian, just also to engage also our audience through Google Club. So if you can connect, if you have not yet connected through Google Club, so I show you again the QR code, or you just tap googleclub.com and put the code story to tell. And I have the following questions. What have you done to engage citizens in your projects? So you heard from 3 cities. So just we would like now to see about your own experience. If you have had similar experiences, successful ones, or perhaps some failures. So you can put it already here. So we do see some of them coming up. So surveys are it's like a classic tool to use to at least gather information. Surveys, I mean, there is also another question about how you really engage people to respond to the surveys. This is always the tricky part with the surveys. All right, we get a lot of already responses. You can also through WooClub, you can also like some responses that are submitted. So walks again, meetings,
Interviews.
budget, participatory budgeting. Yes. Yeah, this is also very successful. I mean, several cities have tested this and they are still doing it because it is a successful technique to engage with citizens, to involve them more in public policies and implementation. City safari, focus groups, festivals, approach youth through festivals, especially youth. There is also, more specificities when it comes to young people. Audio walks and city safaris. Food always works when you meet people in person, for sure. It always works. It always engages. Data art exhibition, innovation marathon. Sandra and Brian, do you see something that you would like
Yeah.
us to pick up
Yeah.
or that you would like to bring?
I see that again here there's a lot of story making, especially and then also storytelling. I mean, through social media and performances. And I think this is an example of how the other examples that we provide, they really are in a way match what cities are already doing. Okay. The other thing is like how you need to have different approaches for different, kinds of citizens. With children, it's difficult. It's different from adults, specific groups, and we'll see that also later. Brian.
Yeah, what's interesting to me here is so many of these are a comment on the medium, and I might be cheating because I know what's coming next on this webinar.
Yeah.
But I think it's actually a beautiful segue into what Sandra is about to cover.
Before we go to the next point, just I would like to invite those of you who have put this kind of ideas or projects that you have already carried out. Can you please send us through the questions and answers option, send us your name and email with this project that you have carried out, in case you would like us to pick it up and also include it in our guide. Because we will be, as I told you before, we will be developing a guide with examples. So if you think that your project should be part of this guide, do include your email through the questions and answers option. I would be very interested to know more about the emotional maps that you refer to here, this kind of examples. The car-free day, also have to say, it's a very successful technique. I mean, to engage people and to bring them in the public space, it's fantastic. Open streets events. So yeah, do bring your do volunteer in a way to for us to pick up your idea and include it in the guide. So let's move on now to Sandra and the last part of our webinar.
Yes, as Brian said, with your answers, you made my job easier now because we're giving some examples of storytelling, story making, story doing that really are about just examples. So we want to hear from you. What I want to highlight in this last part, where you will see a lot of examples, is the medium is the story, which means, in other words, the format you choose is a message by itself, is a message related to what kind of audience, not only what you want to say, but also to whom you want to say. And the examples that we will see are also ways to somehow simplify or visualize or make more storytelling, prone data or policy, but they also somehow refer to specific audiences. So when I would just go very quickly through these examples, I really would like for you to think, who is this better for? Who may be interested or, looking at these specific examples. So I will start with the first. And of course, we have seen
digital inclusion for every soul.
Think of one word that for you represents how you feel about this URBACT network. Cooperation.
Very powerful.
Colorful. Sustainable.
Yes.
Creativity.
Inspired.
The exchange.
It was inspiring.
Fantastic. Confidence. Empowered.
A digitally inclusive Europe we feel.
Okay, here not only they created a musical piece, like a jingle for the project, but here you see that through interview, you just don't need long interviews. You just need one word, and the word tells the story from different perspectives. And so this is multi-perspective and very effective social examples. So the next is another URBACT example on a URBACT network working on retailing in mid-sized cities. And so with this short video, they just wanted to explain from the perspective of the city how to retail, how to retain and attract customers in retailing in the city center. So that's the next.
You adapted your city to the new trends, and now you're ready to host a great retail offer. You should tell the world. Just let them know you. The time has come to create a city brand. No. You're not on the right path. Don't you see? Your people don't buy this. To create a city brand that works, you should take into account, how do you see yourself? How do others see you? How do you want to be known? And very importantly, involve the locals to agree on a common vision. To know if your brand is good, you should ask yourself, is it popular? Do your citizens get involved? Is it more than a slogan? Cities do not need to sell themselves just for the sake of doing it, but there is nothing wrong in finding what makes you special and letting the world know you. Remember, a place is not a brand, it is an experience.
Again, here you see the city as a person, or the person as a city. So that's also very powerful metaphor. Then there's visual storytelling. We have here two examples. Visualizing is also very important because, when we think and when we recall memories, they are visual, they are not words. Then we elaborate on them, but visuals are more effective for us. So I have two examples here. One is from, which I loved, the campaign of the city of Krakow for visitors' behaviors, like tourist behaviors at night. And here, of course, we have started with the Game of Thrones, and we know that dragons are very powerful. But here again is the idea of using the city symbol, the old dragon, and again, saying the old dragon is all the people in Krakow. So behave in a certain way. Again, this is a story that nudges towards good behavior. The other example is also from an URBACT network, or like ethics, working on this on heritage and participatory and democracy. And you see here how they visualized a very complex reflection process that happens during the network life. Okay, and here you see a lot of people, and the spotlight is always about how people feel, what changes, and how they overcome the conflict. Another way is mapping. Firstly, we were talking about emotional mapping, but any kind of mapping is a way not only to tell a story, but also to make a story. So we have here 2 examples from the Eco-Connecting URBACT network. Eco-Connecting is about mobility. But again, visualizing and mapping, not as experts mappers, but as citizens, is also a way to build a story. You build trajectories and you build stories. So mapping is also definitely another way that you may want to use to explain and to use as stories. And then there's a next slide, and here we go more into story doing. And I think also in your feedback earlier, we are seeing like using food or using urban guerrilla or any kind of physical activity. So we have 2 experiences here, and one in Verona from one of the URBACT. These are both from URBACT networks. So what does this say about this street action? It's about the people, but it's about also, you know, what the space is about. Was this a place that was not used? Now we're using it. Now this is a dancing place. And so it's a story behind that. Again, like also food is a very powerful, you know, glue. And here we have what kind of food we're talking about, different food, different people, but it's good food. And what's the story behind the food? So you can tell many stories, you know, just by looking at this picture, and each of you will be already imagining what's behind these pictures. In the next stories, again, these are pictures. And they're all from URBACT cities. The first one is in Milano. You see, you know, young people working on repainting or recoloring the city. So again, this is story making. We decide what the city is gonna look like. But also, you know, you can tell many stories about behind the people in here, you know, like I'm painting a building, I'm not playing my video games, so I'm outside, the city is mine, and so on. Hackathons, for those who are not familiar with it, are challenges, okay, on a specific topic. It starts like in the digital world, but now it's widely used for different challenges and different, you know, not analogic, let's say, challenges. And here again, it's a way to tell a story. If you find a solution to a challenge, you create a story with it, and you create it in groups with young people, and so on. And the last picture is like how a terrace can become a dancing floor. Okay, and that's the story. Okay, and then again, it's story making and story doing. So all these are powerful ways. We talk a little bit about now written storytelling, and how very technical issues or technical issues can be told through different perspectives. And I have 2 examples. One is an article that I wrote some time ago, and it was about explaining how a pedagogical model worked of music education, and how it started. I didn't talk about the pedagogical model, but I talked about I talked about how a young kid coming from Asia was expecting behind the stage for a big performance and a big stadium in Barcelona. And that's how the story about the pedagogical model started. In this other URBACT story, we talk about mobility, and we talk about safe mobility and smart mobility around the school neighborhoods. And this topic, when we talk about mobility, again, we don't talk about the means of transportation, but we talk about the people. Why do people move around? And this, again, the way that this was explained through Anna and her way to school. So Hannah, how she changed and she walked to school safely. And so this is the way that the story about mobility was told. And you can find many of these articles from this perspective also on URBACT, on the URBACT website. And then again, very, very powerful, because they show the change in a very powerful way, is the before and after. And I always remember, because I worked a lot in Brussels, and the Boulevard Ansbach for me is really the epitome of this visible change, how it used to be full of cars, and now it's a space for people. And then there's one thing that you probably struggle a lot with, as from the point of view of city administrations, that you collect a lot of data, and how do I make stories out of data that engage citizens? And it's not an easy task, but here is a good example. So we have an example relating to gender gap. So when we talk about gender gap, we talk about these words and we don't really know what it means, except if it's visualized and told as a story, as a path, starting with a small girl and a small boy, and growing up and seeing all the different dimensions where gender gap is widening for boys and girls until they reach adult life, and it ends that there is less opportunity in many of the different dimensions, especially in the work, but it's also in other dimensions between these small girl and small boy. So this very visual way to look at a very complex concept in a good storytelling. So when I was saying that, you were imagining these kids growing up and having different outcomes and opportunities in their life. And this could be done for many other topics. And so I'm almost at the end, because I've talked a lot today. And you can see from my quotes that I'm a self-declared popular culture geek. It's when we start thinking about storytelling, that's my message, and I will give you some tips, is that we don't need to think about professional storytelling, very, very expensive things, but it's small things. So we need to start with the small things, because in our life, even in our life as public administrators, every day we find a story. So it's a small thing that makes good stories. And I'm just going to finish with 5 tips, okay? Just to give you food for thought. To start or reinforce your storytelling practice. First of all, as I said, we need to become very good observers. Storytellers are very good observers. Good storytellers are very good observers. And as I said, there are many story-worthy moments in your life. Like, write it down on a diary. Oh, this could be something that I say. Observe, pin them down, and then you can elaborate with them. Think about, what is the change? What are the heroes? Who is the protagonist? What is the conflict? All these things. And then experiment. Failure, as we have seen from Fernando, it's a good teacher, okay? And it helps you try it again, and so on. So experiment with different formats, because you will have different citizens. And every citizen or every group of citizens, any category you want to engage will need different formats. And then also always think that the story is not about us who tell us, is about also who is listening or watching or seeing the story or living the story, as we have seen in story making and story doing. So when you think about your audience, so what kind of category of citizens you want to engage, think about what do they want to feel? What is our shared vision of the world or of the city? So always think about who you're telling your story for. And then the last two tips, and we have seen this very clearly in all the examples that we have shown, is that together and collective storytelling is more powerful, because it already engages not in the telling, but in the making and in the doing the audience. And so doing it together it's easier to create ownership of this story, and we feel part of the story. And then the last part is that, even small story and each steps that you do, okay, celebrate it, analyze, did it work? Why it work? Why it didn't work? It's very important that you reflect on how your stories work, okay? And then you can reframe, as Brian said earlier today, reframe your story to see if it resonates better with the specific citizens you want to engage or to refer to with your story. And that's it. And of course, I have my last, I'm just gonna give to Jenny, and of course I have my last bit of geeky popular culture reference. So good luck to everyone, and the force will be with you always. Remember, we are all storytellers. We just need to become better storytellers.
Thank you
Okay,
very much,
back to
Sandra.
you.
Thank you. Very wise words. We are all storytellers. We just need to be a bit better in telling our stories. Before we really officially end the meeting, I will stop sharing the screen. And what I'm going to ask all of you who are watching us today, I'm going to ask you two questions, but I'm going to do it through Zoom actually. So I'm going first to ask you about your knowledge. So as a result of this webinar, if your knowledge has increased in relation to the topic, in relation to storytelling. So you will have, if you are not watching me right now, you just listen to me and have a look in front of your screen. There is a poll appearing if this webinar has increased your knowledge on the topic. So please, so we have still in the room, in the Zoom room, we have around 200 people. So I see that 126 people have responded. So I'm just waiting a few more seconds for all of you to respond. This is really, really important for us to know whether there is an impact with this kind of webinars, so we can improve ourselves, so we can see whether we repeat these webinars, etc. So I have 140 people having responded. Few more seconds, and then I'm going to go to the second question. Okay, I'm going to close the poll and I'll share the results with you. So thank you very much. It shows that the webinar has increased your knowledge. Thank you. And let's go to the second question, which is about if we're going to do something more on storytelling, just to know whether you are interested in having more help with storytelling techniques. So I'm going to launch this second poll. What else can URBACT do to help you with storytelling? So there is the guide we mentioned in the beginning that we are going to develop and we are going to present during the URBACT City Festival. We are wondering whether you would like more of these online trainings on storytelling. What we did not touch upon this time was about how to translate technical language into a more accessible language for citizens. This we did not touch upon at all. more on the language side, how we do this kind of translation to make it more accessible, more appealing, more engaging for people and citizens. So this is perhaps something that we can reflect on and organize a specific one on translating the technical content. And some of you are also say in-person training on storytelling. In-person trainings are really effective too. We will have in any case the session at the URBACT City Festival. Sandra Reinero and Brian Marvinan will be the ones who will deliver again this training. I think we'll make it more of a training at the URBACT City Festival. So feel free to register to the festival. So I'm going to end the poll and I'll show you the results. So what you have responded. So in any case, the guide seems to be a reference, so seems to be something that most of you want, and then more of this kind of trainings and online or in person. I would really like to thank, first of all, Sandra Reinero. Many thanks, Sandra, for delivering this webinar. Brian, very much for the inputs, and our cities, our speakers, Julia, Fernando, Paloma. Fantastic examples. Thank you for bringing them today. We will also include your examples in the guide, so there will be more of you in the guide that we will develop. Thank you, many thanks to all the participants for your high interest and active involvement in this webinar. We hope to see you again soon. First of all, in Nicosia, at the URBACT City Festival. Please register, and then hopefully we will share also with you all. We do have your emails through Zoom, and we will share these slides first of all, and also the recording of this webinar on our URBACT website. There is a specific web page where you registered in the first place. So it is at that web page where we will put this afternoon the slides and the recordings. Thank you again for following up and staying active until the end of the webinar. I wish you all the best for the end of this day, and hopefully see you soon. Bye bye.